Just like the Houston Oilers, UH's chances at a bowl game in Willie Fritz's first year are DED dead. Let's get locked on Baylor postgame.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Baylor Football Postgame Show. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. It's your number one destination for Baylor postgame coverage. And that was not a pretty one. Not a pretty one at all. But they really don't ask how. They just ask how many. Baylor makes it 5 in a row, 20-10 over Houston. Down at TD-ECU Stadium, the Bears go to 7-4 on the season, and their Big 12 championship hopes are alive. If they weren't hanging by a thread before, they certainly are now. This has been an interesting day because everything leading up to kickoff went exactly the way that Baylor needed it to. The Bears get the win. All they need now is for Iowa State to beat Utah in Salt Lake City. Not an easy place to win, but not a good football team in Utah. The Utes have just made that a 24-21 game. They're trailing by only 3. So I know it's a lot about another game early on in the show, but it is something we need to watch. Utah is getting the ball back. There's just under 10 minutes left. And if Utah wins that game, that is going to knock out one of the scenarios for Baylor, at least one of the scenarios, if not all of them, for Baylor to get to the Big 12 championship game, at least the one I was following today where everything went right up until this game. So, boy, that is something. Utah has scored 3 touchdowns and none of them have been on offense. That's incredible. But we're talking about the Baylor-Houston game. It was ugly. Yes, let's get that out of the way because, to be honest, there's not a ton of positives I can take from this game. But the big overwhelming positive is they won the game. They went on the road in the Big 12 and won a game by double digits. Now, a month and a half ago, I would have sawed off my arm for that. And it really shows how far Baylor's come in this 5-game winning streak to say, boy, that really wasn't good on any level, but they won on the road by double digits. You got to take that. And you know what this game made me think of? 2021, they beat Kansas State by the same score, 20-10 on the road, down Kansas State team. You lost your quarterback in the middle of that one, and you played ugly and you won ugly. 2019, West Virginia at home on Halloween, 17-14. You were much better than that West Virginia team. You won ugly, but you won. Also in that year, 2019, in Houston against Rice, they won 21-13. It was a bad Rice team, standing headline, bad Rice football team. And that Baylor team went to the Sugar Bowl. So you do need these kind of wins, or you need them to be wins, because the last 2-3 years, it's been a lot of losses when you play this poorly. So not a ton of positives, but the biggest takeaway is a positive because what it is they won the game. But a lot of things did not go right in this one. The offense, I thought, played really poorly. And halfway through the fourth quarter, they had run 6 offensive plays in the second half. That can't happen. This is a good Houston defense. We were talking about it all week. But as I said on Friday's show, I was not worried about this offense against the UH defense. As good as they might be, I was like, okay, maybe they'll hold them to 31 points. They held them to 20 and kept them in that game. But that Cougar offense is horrid, just horrible. So a nice little get back for the Baylor defense. First time they forced 3 turnovers in a game this year. And they end up winning the turnover battle, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Somehow, after all that, they won the turnover battle. 3 picks and a fumble forced on special teams. But there was all kinds of issues in this one. First off, 3 picks. Sawyer Robertson throwing 3 interceptions. And they were all pretty bad. Like none of them were like, oh, a tip ball or his receiver wasn't looking for it. Like they were all bad picks in that game. And they had a play where they tried to get too cute right before the half. They had it a 3rd and goal, like the 3-yard line, and they go Wildcat. With the success that they had running the ball in the first half, it looked much different first half to second half. I had no idea why they were going Wildcat there. Snap goes over the head. Maybe it doesn't go over a 6'4" guy's head, but I don't know. It was a pretty high snap. And you almost knocked yourself out of field goal range there. From a 3rd and goal, all of a sudden you're kicking it from the 30. Like that kind of stuff can't happen. Penalties were taking them out of drives, staring down receivers that led to picks. One of them leads directly to a touchdown on a pick 6. The last 4th down Baylor had, where they're up by 10 and kind of running the clock out, they have it at the 25, and they don't kick a field goal after Hankins had hit from like 47 or 48, or maybe it was even 50. They don't kick a 42-yarder. They go for it on 4th down, and they're passing, and it's a pick, and you're like just giving them a bone. There was another play that I just lost my mind on earlier in the 4th quarter. They had a 3rd and 12 from the 39. Now you're not in field goal range there, and it's a tough one to pick up, but they take a delay of game penalty. How is nobody calling a timeout there? Baylor had not used a timeout. How is no one screaming at Dave Aranda? How is he not running down the sideline calling for a timeout? Because if it's 3rd and 12 and you get half of it back, then you are in field goal range. Then you are kicking a 50-yarder. Instead, you've taken yourself out of it. There's no 3rd and 17 play against this Houston defense, and there's no field goal there. Like that, I was just like, what is happening? It looked like everyone was sleepwalking through that game. But you won. And they couldn't guard Michael Trigg. I mean, Michael Trigg is the player of the game for me, at least offensively for Baylor. I thought Trevin Ma'ai had a really nice game defensively. But all of his catches come in the first half. 4 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. One of them was a 42-yarder. He had 56 yards after the catch. 4 catches on 4 targets. Love that. No targets in the second half, though. Ashton Hawkins made a nice play on a good adjustment. Chris Platt, Baylor legend, had tweeted out during the first half after the second Sawyer pick that these DBs were sitting on the routes. Guys running 5-yard comebacks looking for the ball, and these DBs are sitting at 6-7 yards and just reading the quarterback's eyes. That's how the first 2 picks happen. And it was happening on that Ashton Hawkins play as well, but Hawkins has like a nice choice route where he sits down, notices the DB's doing the same thing, and then he just goes around him. And there's no way that flat-footed DB, that was a nickel, no way he was winning that race, and it becomes a touchdown. I thought that was a really nice adjustment by Spavital and Sawyer Robertson to notice it. And I thought, okay, here we go. Like, there we go. We're taking off from there. And instead, it did not happen like that. But the Bears do get the win. And they forced 3 turnovers on defense, which even against a bad offense, I'm going to take that for this Baylor defense that has not really done much in the turnover department this season. Utah is about to score, by the way, with 6.5 minutes left. It's 1st and goal from the 1-yard line. Oh, man, wouldn't that be crushing if everything else this week fell into place and Baylor even wins ugly, and then they get knocked out of that Big 12 championship contention? Again, I don't know. There's like 3 different scenarios that they have. The one I was following today needs an Iowa State win. And so I don't know if the other 2 have that. And I can't really look it up while I'm doing this post game. So somebody else let me know in the comments. But the one I was looking at, everything else fell into place, and they need this one. So the Bears did not run the ball very well after the first half, and they went away from the run. But I'm a big yards per play guy for the whole game, and Houston outdueled Baylor in that category by 0.2 yards a play. But still, I mean, you saw that UH offense is terrible. It sucks. It just has no hope, no alibi, and they had more yards per play. and Baylor only had 2.5 yards per rush. So again, the numbers in this one are rather ugly, but again, they come away with a win. So I can't, I remember what it was like at 2-4. So I can't take too much from it. Chuck says Sawyer was horrible tonight. Yes, he did not have a good game. I still think he gave you more of a shot than a lot of the other quarterbacks in recent memory for Baylor. So it's one bad game he's had this season. I'm not taking too much from it, but this is a real tough game you got next week, like a real tough game. Interesting to see what that line is going to be. Utah has scored. Uh-oh. If it's an ugly loss, allowing 10 points in Houston, sign me up. Well, it was not a loss. So that's the key part. If you meant to say it's an ugly win, Commish Gaming, yes, it was an ugly win, but it's a win. It is a win. Let's see. Trigg was the highlight of the night. Yeah, absolutely. He was. Definitely was. They couldn't guard him in the first half, but they clearly made an adjustment in the second half. Like for as lackluster as Baylor's offense was tonight, they clearly, I don't have the all 22, but clearly they covered Trigg in the second half. There's no way they just weren't going to him. Scotty B says, I hope Josh Cameron will be all right next week. I hope so too. They kept saying that was a head thing, which he does get hit in the head, but amateur doctor Cam Stewart here, I think that was maybe a neck thing. He gets the helmet off when he's on the ground. He goes down a little bit afterwards. I think that was maybe a neck thing, which I don't know that that's any better, but he was kind of yelling at the guys like, I'm okay. So hopefully he is okay. Now, I do want to revisit something I said. I believe it was last week's game, but I can't remember if it was last week or the TCU game. Maybe even both, but I felt like Sawyer was, and I think it was last week's game because I remember having the thought of him being in the walking boot, which came after the TCU game. Sawyer they were not looking downfield much in the second half last week, to the point where I was like, is Sawyer just like a little bit hurt? Not injured, but hurt. And I felt that on the first two picks tonight. I was like, those are just throws he makes. The second one in particular, the pick six, that's a long throw, but that's a throw he makes. He hasn't had problems with that, and he really hasn't had problems protecting the football at all this year. Again, that was, they had one pick in the 4-game, or one turnover in the 4-game win streak, and now at 5 it becomes 4 turnovers. So that was a little interesting. I think obviously not hurt enough to not play, but I'm just wondering if there's something up with him. But again, he's this offense and this team has turned around completely with him at quarterback. This is the worst they played offensively since that Utah game. And I thought back to that game and I thought, man, if Baylor had to continue on like that offensively, there would have been zero hope. So, yeah, a lot of you guys in the comments keeping me updated on Utah. So, all right, take this for what it's worth. Ryan says, from what I understand, if BYU or Colorado loses next week, ASU loses next week. Now, that one happens in every scenario. Arizona needs to beat Arizona State. That's a real tough one. And Iowa State loses tonight or next week, Baylor is in the game. So this scenario, Iowa State can lose tonight. Okay, that is interesting. Anthony is still mad about last night, that basketball loss to Tennessee. Yeah, sorry I couldn't do the post game last night, but that was really bad. We're gonna have to talk about that this week. Like that was concerning last night. And I'll leave it for another show, but that was really bad. Aaron said, didn't understand why we stopped running the ball in the third quarter. Me neither. I thought they passed out of a lot of situations they should have been running in tonight. And again, credit to Houston has a good run defense, but we almost didn't, like I've been saying that they didn't run the ball as well in the second half. We almost didn't even know because they kind of abandoned it for a while. Chuck points out only 3 points given up by the defense. Yeah, defense did enough tonight. I don't think they were great. They allowed Houston to sustain some drives in that second half, but but you finished. So I can't complain too much about that. Perry asks, is Finn still on the roster? Yes, he is. I really, really doubt he's going to take another snap this year. But he is on the roster. He's been out with an injury basically since, I think he suited up for the Iowa State game. And since then, it has not been there. Kamish, big comeback, 74 people in the chat, even more now. Well, it just went back down. It needs to be 74 likes. Like this video. That helps out the channel a ton. Let's help CSM out. Yes. I know that meant to say Cam. Billy said, O-line, although they gave up a few sacks, showed they could do decent against a good defensive line. Yeah, O-line, big positive tonight, as it has been throughout this winning streak. Big positive tonight, including in that first half when they were turning the ball over. They were getting a great push from that offensive line. Like that has been maybe the most impressive part of this turnaround, because obviously Sawyer's been a huge part of it. Bryson Washington has been, and that running game in general, but that starts with this offensive line. And they have been, they have really turned this thing around, and they got depth there too. You know, Fugar isn't even playing every snap, and I think he's been real good for them. By the way, Stan Bino, it's at Stan Bino something on Twitter, big Baylor guy. He had the 3 scenarios on the Big 12 championship game, how Baylor can get there. He had that on Sunday. So look back at that on Twitter if you're looking for the 3 scenarios. I obviously can't really do that right now. Baylor fan, what do you think about the play right before the half, before the high snap? Kind of went over that earlier. Just don't know why you're going Wildcat there. I thought you had success running the ball in the first half. The thing that killed them in the first half was the turnovers, right? Like they were moving the ball and they scored 2 touchdowns, but it was the second half that it got stagnant. So at that point, I just don't know why you're not just lining up, getting the push, handing the ball to Bryson Washington, and scoring a touchdown. That I was confused by. I'm fascinated by this matchup next week, guys. I know this isn't necessarily the spot for it, but if Baylor's path to the Big 12 championship burns up at the end of this game, this Iowa State-Utah game, then I'm okay with the Big 12 just saying Kansas can go play in the title game, because that was huge. They are the first team in history with a losing record to knock off 3 straight ranked opponents. Like, this is an unbelievable story that the Jayhawks are cooking up. I hate that they're coming into our place next week for bowl eligibility on the line. Like, that actually genuinely worries me, but that's something we're going to talk about more this week. Billy asks, what was Taz's big announcement? I know most of you guys saw this on Twitter. Taz Williams said he was putting out a big announcement, and then he put out a TikTok of just video or picture after picture of him in his Michigan, at his Michigan official visit, which was one of the teams that really thought they were going to get Taz on his commitment day, and he shocked the nation and went with Baylor. I have done my digging on this. This is not a flip. He is not flipping to Michigan. From what I can gather, and this part is not from anyone, this is just from me. He's getting a lot of views on that TikTok, and TikTok's pretty easy to monetize. So I cannot blame the kid if he's looking to get 1 million views on TikTok for that one, and be able to get some money out of that. So I definitely think that's probably the case. Team JPC, ugly win, but we'll take it. Don't really want to see a game where Josh Cameron only has 3 targets. Yeah, I think they played him really well, to be honest with you, because that guy can get open in a phone booth. And I was watching him on a lot of those third downs in particular. They covered him really well. That play where he gets the headshot, that was a big time play. That was a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. And that is the classic, like, go to your go-to guys. And they just did a quick slant. Josh Cameron gets open pretty easy. And that was a good one. Benito asked, do you think the uniforms almost being the same color have something to do with Sawyer seeing the field? I don't think so. But yeah, that powder blue is not that far from white. I know people will be like, what? That's crazy. But it's really not that different. But no, I don't think that was it. I think he was just locked in on the receivers too much. And Trevor says, remember, Coach Sean Bell knows Sawyer's tendencies. Maybe that worked against us. I don't know about that one just because it's a totally new offense that he's working with. And you've got, 6 or 8 games on film from this year. So I don't know. I don't know that that's a John Gruden in the Super Bowl where the Raiders just didn't change up any of their calls or their audibles or anything somehow. But yeah, I just think this was a poor game from Sawyer. And those do not come often. This is the first one this year, actually. So I expect him to bounce back next week. But again, that is a big time team that's coming in to play us. And Baylor Barrow 3 mentions that we were playing a desperate team that was trying to get to bowl eligibility in their house. So happy with a win. Yep. There's definitely something to that. I did think there was a push-pull in terms of Houston playing well and Baylor playing poorly, but I really like the way that Houston plays, man. Especially obviously defensively. Like they did not give in on that game at all. And this is not a good football team talent-wise right now, but that's a real credit to this coaching staff for having them playing this aggressively and this grittily at this point in the season. Because there are teams that, even when they are backed up against bowl eligibility, don't have a great effort. I watched Kentucky today. Those guys just didn't really have a prayer against UT. And they were up against it with bowl eligibility. So some of those teams can't come in and bring in a good performance when they do that, or they've already mailed it in. They're already thinking about Thanksgiving. They're already thinking about Christmas at home and all that stuff. Houston did not do that. Okay. Like this Willie Fritz thing is going in the right direction. I'll tell you that. And I was a Willie Fritz guy at Tulane, and I was, happy for Houston that they went out and got him. I thought that was a good move. And he's really showing that the age doesn't really matter. He's in his 60s, but he is building a heck of a program right now. Iowa State in the red zone. I almost want to keep this thing going just for this, even though the people that are watching and listening tomorrow will not care. Big moment from this game tonight. Did not happen on the field. It actually happened pregame, because I got to show you guys this watching on YouTube. This is incredible. Yeah. Look at this thing, huh? The Chrome Dome. Yes. And some of you will listen afterwards. This is a Baylor Chrome helmet from the Bryles days, replica helmet. Oh, it fits like a glove. Got this thing at Bankston's in Waco today. They've got some awesome Baylor stuff. They did not pay me to say this, but I love Bankston's, and they came in with the Chrome Dome, and I absolutely love this thing. Moving into a new studio in a few weeks, I will try my hardest to get this displayed, but the old lady might have something to say about it. This thing is so sick, and if I ever have a real office, this is where it's going. Oh, man. And the flow coming out of the helmet. Sorry for those of you listening. You don't really get that. But golly, I love Bankston's. They've got so much cool Baylor stuff. Let's go. Let's go on the helmet. And let's go on Iowa State. Iowa State touchdown. God, I should just wore this the whole time, man. Yeah. It could go over the hat too if you try hard enough. I'm not going to do it. But yeah, that thing's really cool. I couldn't find this thing anywhere. Not on eBay, anything. And the only times you can find Baylor football helmets they're super expensive and you need to know somebody. This was not that expensive. It was like $200, which is really not expensive for a helmet, for one that I'm going to have for a long time. A lot of people in the comments talking about the Oklahoma score. Someone asking, TNT Tovar asking, is this Chris Callahan's helmet? I don't know. I don't think so. It's just a replica. It's got like plastic at the top. So I hope not. But does a kicker need a real helmet? Well, he did in that Cotton Bowl. I hope he had a real helmet on for that. Anyway, that is the Baylor victory, 20-10. You need them. You need them at some point. Anytime you're successful, 20-10 against Kansas State in 2021, last game of the regular season in that year. They had to have Tech miss a field goal at the end of regulation. There's also the 2019 ones I pointed out. They had 2 of those. If you go back to the Bryles years, they still scored a lot of points, but there were some ugly ones there. 2014, they barely beat Tech in Arlington. So you need these. You need these. And as of right now, the dream is still alive to be in Arlington in a couple weeks. There's a lot that needs to happen, and next week is the real upset week that you need to happen, but everything has gone right so far this week, so I will take that. Guys, thank you so much for making this your first listen today and every day. Do not be scared of the Taz Williams thing. He is not flipping to Baylor. Anthony's saying we need a Sydney appearance post-game. I'll ask her. I'll ask her, but Sydney's working on the weekends, especially like next week, she's going to be working at the game. So I don't know. That's tough. These local news people, your local sports people, they work really hard. Okay. And I always want to get that out there when I can, because I was once one of those, and doing news, which really sucked, guys. Sports is at least fun. That really sucked. Anyway, thank you guys for making your first listen today and every day. We'll of course have more of a breakdown on this game on Monday, talk a little bit about that ugly basketball loss and what needs to happen for Baylor to get to Arlington, because it's still possible right now. And Utah's going to need one heck of a drive to knock off Iowa State in this one. Anyway, be sure to like and subscribe. That helps out the channel a ton. Seriously, guys, anytime you actually like the video. That really, really helps. And get involved in the comment section, because that helps too. Did we decide what song Scotty B has to dance to? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you guys are students who are going home somewhere in Texas during the Thanksgiving holiday, come back on Saturday. We need a big crowd there. That could be a night game. Kansas is the best 6-loss team on the planet, and we could really use another great student section and a great overall atmosphere, the same way we did against TCU during the last home game. Anyway, I've been saying way too much. Thank you guys so much. We will see you on Monday on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.